Alright, since some people struggle installing Motec, what we're going to do is do a video here. So in Discord, in the resources channel, there is a link to a Dropbox folder. It's going to look slightly different for me because I'm the owner of it, but there should be an option to go over here and download. So if I were to maybe just select the checkbox here, all three folders. Actually, you can kind of just do that. There you go. And then click download. It should do it into a folder called telemetry tools. You might need something to export it like WinRAR or 7-zip, whatever the case may be. I reckon you're going to need one of them for, I think you're going to need WinRAR for this Esports Racing Group workbook. But basically, what we're going to do is just go ahead and extract it to the downloads. That's fine. So I can go ahead and close this out, and now we'll pull this up and go to my downloads. Cool, so now I have a folder. This is what we downloaded, this is what we extracted. Cool, so now to get everything going, right? So Mew, I should start out with that. I already have it running, I already have it installed. That's the one thing I forgot to install. So Mew is your exporter. So what it will do is when you log telemetry in the sim, it is in a file format that Motec cannot read. So we have to compensate for that with Mew. It's a software that was written by somebody on the iRacing forums. It's literally not written by iRacing themselves. It's not managed, it's not maintained, anything like that. So when you launch it, you just go through the prompts. It should be fairly easy to install. When it installs, I will close it here so I can relaunch it and show you how I launch it. Literally, just hit the start menu, type in MU, and then launch it. It comes up, and it almost always comes up with an error. You see that time it crashed, so we'll go ahead and launch it again. If you don't know if it's running, you can click this little arrow right here, and it'll tell you. If this little icon's not there, obviously it's not there. So this error was downloading, installing the update. This is fine. This is literally going to generate literally every time that you launch Mew. That's no big deal. Just click OK. Cool. So on Motec, we leave this alone. Leave this alone. Import directory. This is where your telemetry files are going by default by iRacing, and that's fine. Export directory. By default, it's going to be set to the same directory, and that is also fine. We have some of ours are set up. We have the Google Drive app so that we basically can automatically export our stuff to Google Drive. However, that can make your connection, like when you're in the sim, especially when it's first starting, it can be kind of sketchy when it's trying to catch up and all that stuff. So I wouldn't worry about that. That's more of an advanced thing if you're constantly working with a group on telemetry, but more than likely you're not going to have to. We have enough telemetry we can see between 4 people or 5 people. We don't really need a dozen people's. Audio enable, you can turn that on. I don't think it always works, and then I have this set to 1 because if you have it, I think by default it's set to 0, and basically if you don't do a lap, it'll still count it and export the lap, and it's kind of annoying. And then I have this set to never. You can have it set to whatever. Every file in your Documents iRacing telemetry folder will be automatically exported to whatever this export directory is. So you could set up a folder just for the Mew files or the files from Motec outside of that and point that at it, and you'll be able to see it. If you try to clean up your folder because you have too many and they get big, they do. You need to delete the files in your Documents iRacing telemetry and then delete the exported files, because every time you launch Mew, it will go to that export directory folder, and if it sees a file that is missing, that is in the import directory, it will re-export it. So you can delete that folder as many times as you want. If it's still in your Documents iRacing telemetry, it's going to re-export it every time. So moving on, this needs to be running basically every time you want to look at telemetry. It doesn't have to run while you're running laps. It doesn't matter if you record telemetry and then launch it or whatever. That's fine. It just has to run before you try to open the file, because otherwise it's not going to export it, you're not going to find it. So if you go into Motec and you try to open a file, it doesn't work, well, that's why. So anyway, moving on. That's Mew, the Mew installer 3. Next thing we're going to do is install Motec, so the MI2 Pro. This is an older version. It will tell you to update. Do not update, because it will not be able to read the workbook, because the workbook is not up to date, but with the newer versions of Motec, it is perfectly fine workbook to use. Most versions or most workbooks out there will not work otherwise. So literally just click into the prompts here, next, yes, whatever it needs to install. This is not anything crazy. I don't click the show readme file just because it's kind of annoying, and then finish. Cool, so now I have Motec installed. So now if I go and I Motec, I can pull it up, and you see I already have some workbooks there. So what you're going to do the first time is want to click Open Existing Workbook, and you're going to want to click Import. I am going to see if no, I can't delete these. Anyway, what we're going to do next is the workbook that we're going to use, right? So to use the Esports Racing Group workbook, you need to kind of install it. That's pretty easy. This is where you need WinRAR, so we're just going to extract to, and then where it doesn't matter where it goes on your computer, it just needs to go somewhere that it's going to be permanent. So what I'm going to do here is Documents iRacing, and then I'm going to do a new folder, and it's going to be Esports Racing Group Motec. I'm going to shorten the title a little bit. Let's just do ERG. That's fine. I might have to rename this here. Nope. Okay, cool. Anyway, we're going to go, we'll click new folder there. There we go. Now we got it. We're good. So this one can go away because we don't need it. We want this one. Alright. Click OK. And now we're good. So now, if I just close out of this, I click Open Existing Workspace, click Import, and then what we can do is go to Libraries, My Documents, iRacing, and then we'll go into Telemetry because this is where I saved it. It doesn't matter. Oof, I didn't save it in Telemetry, I'm sorry. My bad. iRacing and the ERG is the folder, my apologies. But it doesn't matter where you save it. You just need to go to where that folder was and then click through Motec, i2, Workspaces, Esports Racing Group V 1.3, and then you need the i2 WSP file selected, sorry, and then click Workspace, click Open, and then it's going to show up. See, I have the copy because I already have it installed. But so now if I were to click OK, it's going to bring me this. Now my Motec is customized because I have had it installed, very obviously. So if you want this dark theme that I have, the way to get it is Tools, Options, and then if you go to Colors, and then select Scheme, and you click Motec Black, or Gray Data, or Black Data, whatever you need, click OK, and then OK, and it's going to give you this kind of a view. So now, this is literally nothing useful here. As you can see, there's literally just nothing on it but a bunch of graphs that are empty. So what we'll do is hit this little plus icon on the folder, and then what we're going to do is navigate here. So for you, you're going to go to your Documents, iRacing, Telemetry, or wherever you set the export directory to be. So for me, I have nothing there because I'm not using that folder. I'm using Google Drive, so I'm going to have to navigate there separately, which is a little different. Either way, you just need to get to your Telemetry folder, like I did. So it should be your Documents iRacing Telemetry. And give it a second to load here, because if it's got to load a lot of files, it is what it is. And then you will be able to just click on a file and click Open, and it should populate data. So of everything that you can use on this workbook, right? All kinds of fun, crazy stuff. You have Esports Racing Group tab, Compare Data, and Suspension. I'll start with Suspension. There is a lot of information, and I don't use any of this because it doesn't really help. This is something we might start using, but again, not crazy about it at the moment. Compare Data. You can kind of see driver response. We can see your throttle inputs. You could see ours. That's so on and so forth. Aero drag, that kind of stuff. We don't really get into that too much. What we look for is you can see tire temps, weight transfer, lifting points. But what we really look at is the splitter. You can see splitter in motion based on your throttle inputs and bump spring status. I'm going to make a separate video on how these work because this is telling you when your shock spring is engaging or disengaging. In that separate video, we'll go a little more in depth on how you find that because you actually have to do some custom math. The other thing you can do, which is kind of cool, is you can actually calculate your fuel usage. There is one of these tabs was a little more designed for it, and I'm actually probably going to release a custom version of this workbook to you guys, but for now this is what you're going to use. That will make it easier to kind of determine what your fuel is. because I can't remember exactly where I found it. I mean, I kind of played with this a lot. Oh, here it is. So if you click on this fuel usage and you extend it, right? So I just slide it over because I don't use the other stuff really that too much. You can see how much fuel you burned on that lap, what you started with and what you ended with. Basically how much you lost over the lap. So if I see that I'm losing 0.31 a lap, gallons of fuel, and I know I have 18.7 gallons of fuel, so if I were to take 18.7 and divide it by 0.31, I believe that'll give you the amount of laps that you're going to be able to run on fuel. So just a cool thing you can kind of do. Again, I don't really use the tire wear stuff and the downforce stuff. I mean, you kind of can. A lot of that might be something we see from caps or just what's in the sim is good enough half the time. The big thing here really is splitter, because rightites are extremely important. Breaking down these splitter channels, I kind of go over it in a video later. This -0.1 is going to be the lowest point. If you hover over it, you can see there's a blue line all the way to the left, and if you go over here, it's going to be kind of in the middle here, towards turn 3. What this is the left splitter, right splitter. The lowest point that it is on the track, so this is where it's hitting, or this is the point on the track that it's getting the lowest that it gets. It's recording that number so you can see how low it gets. This is Kentucky, so this is obviously a very bumpy track, so you're going to see a lot of movement. This red is the highest point, and this diamond here, the yellow or orange, whatever it is the average ride height. Cool, good enough. So we try to keep those underneath 1 basically for the averages, and the lowest point you want to keep at about 0. It can hit the track, that's okay. As you see, it's hitting at 1 point, and then it might hit over here. You can see I can kind of click there, and you can see over here it'll show you what it is at that point. Another thing you can kind of do is if you want to basically zoom in on a place, on an area, like we want to get kind of closer in this so we can get a little better view of what's going on, we can kind of resize this little box to show us this exact area on the track, and then I can drag this around a little more consistently and actually see exactly that it gets down to 0.0. So that's perfect. Now if I want to use the full lap again, I just double click on the 3 up here, or the 4 or the 2. Again, the 4 was your out laps or your in laps, so it's whatever. So anytime that you open up a file here in Motec, what you're going to see, I have sorted mine. So what I'll do is go in here and go edit columns, and I will basically put in what I want over here. This is a pretty good thing to have, basically this layout. The total laps will be wrong all the time, and what you have to take into consideration is it's counting your lap out of pit road until you hit the line, and it's also going to count your lap, a full lap, when you cross the line and then come to a stop. Even though you're not running a full lap, that lap, it will count it as a lap. So I did a 2-lap run, and it's going to show 4 or 3. That's fine. That's why this lap here you can see is kind of short. It doesn't actually show everything. These laps are broken down. You can kind of see sometimes it'll only show turn 1 and turn 2. Sometimes it's a little more accurate, sometimes a little off, but you can see basically where this is at. It's between turns 1 and 2 here. This is the back straightaway. You can see what the ride heights are doing, and then turn 3 and 4. This line is the track surface, track surface, track surface. In the rear, these are measured, or in the bottom here, these are measured by the side skirts. I explained in the next video. This 4-inch mark is about as low as you want to get in the rear. We like that. So this is pretty close. It's a little high. But again, this is when we built a base setup on a video that you'll see soon. This is a basic explanation and a basic walkthrough of Motec. I will tell you right now, and I mentioned it later, these are done by math. The left splitter and right splitter channels are not actual channels in Motec or that are exported by the sim. So these are not dead accurate, but they are extremely, extremely, extremely close because a bunch of smart people figured them out. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kill this video and work on the next one.